Om Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. O Lord, please lead us from unreality to the reality, from ignorance to the knowledge, and from death to immortality. Oh, peace, peace, peace. Dear devotees, today we are all having a interesting topic. The interesting topic is the evolution of the concept of the God. We all know that evolution of the human being, Darwin's theory, we all know that how the evolution of the human being has happened, natural selection, and other things. And evolution of science, evolution of technology, evolution of, species from unicellular to multicellular organisms. All these things we have heard and we have seen probably. But Swami Vivekananda is discussing way back in 1896, in 1897, 1896 around, in London, the evolution of the concept of God while discussing the Jnana Yoga, which is very interesting in the nature. Because the evolution of the concept of God, very hardly people think, hardly people imagine even. So let us try to understand based on Swami Vivekananda's ideas. Now, before going to the subject, I would like to tell, or I would like to give the word of caution for the listeners. Here, it is not the evolution of the God, it is only the evolution of the concept of God. It is not the evolution of God, it is only the evolution of the concept of God. What does it mean? So, here, God is not evolving, it is only our perception, our understanding, our concept about the God is only evolving. Oh, so here evolution of the concept of God means the word concept we forget. Oh, God is evolving, something interesting theory. So God is not evolved here because he's all powerful and is all perfect and is complete. It is only our perception is uh, evolving. And Swami Vivekananda makes a wonderful, very significant remark that as the perception of the human being evolves, it is directly proportional to the evolution of the concept of the God, which is very, very important, which many of us may not understand. Even we may not believe also. It takes some time for us to understand and appreciate. The concept and the perception of oneself and its evolution is directly proportional on the perception and the concept of evolution of on the God also. Say for example, like there are people, couple of people who are thinking that man is just a body, the physical body, whatever we see, the man is a human being is a physical body. When this human body perishes, then man or woman dies, human being dies. That's what he was understanding or he was thinking. So he was living at the level of instincts. So he wants to enjoy, he wants to have a power, he wants to have a position, he wants to have a merrymaking. So his concept of God also was very primitive in nature. His God also was very fearful. His God also was very demanding. His God also had a lot of human deficiencies. As a result, even among the gods and goddesses, there were a lot of quarrels, lot of jealousy, lot of conflicts. Why? Because human being is thinking or is living at the level of instincts. Now, slowly the society or the civilization or the tribes got improved. He started thinking and he started understanding there is a necessity of morality and there's a necessity of ethics in the society for the sound society. If we have to have a peaceful coexistence, if we have got a sound society, if we need, then we need morality, we need ethics. Then we started conceiving, or the human being started perceiving that God is the moral agent. So God should be moral, God should be ethical always, and he is to be right always. He cannot tell lies, he cannot cheat, he cannot do wrong things. Then further, if you grow as human being, as a civilization grew, he started thinking at the level of thoughts. He started thinking at the level of ideas. Then God became the supplier of the ideas. God is an intelligent cosmic principle. God helps us to invent things. God helps us to discover things because he's one of the intelligent person who is existing, ever existing in the world. Then slowly, whatever Advaita Vedanta says, the human being essentially is divine. He is the subject, never the object. When he started conceiving, when he started perceiving, when he started understanding that he is neither the body, nor the mind, nor the thoughts, but just is the self, is the consciousness, is the divine, then he started understanding his concept of God evolved into God as the supreme self. God is Sat, bare existence, and Chit, bare awareness, and God as Ananda, absolute, everlasting, unalloyed bliss. So this is one of the wonderful, important point which Swamiji makes in his Jnana Yoga lecture. As the concept of, as the understanding of the human being evolved, even if you see in the society or in the civilization, his concept of God also got evolved. So the key for any understanding, according to Swami Vivekananda, his own understanding. The more and more I understand who I am, and the better I understand about the world and also about the God. Now, giving this overall explanation of the broad canvas, let me go into bit details. If you see in the Vedic gods, though Western philosophy or Western theologians, they attribute the Vedic gods or the pantheistic gods, or the Vedic philosophy advocates the pantheism, which is not true. But they say Vedic philosophy propagates the pantheism. And there, if you see, the gods generally, like few demigods or celestial beings, we can say now, but in those days, they were the supreme gods with a small g, of course. Indra, Vayu, Varuna, Agni, Shashanka. Indra, he was the king, he was the chief among the gods. And he was the ruler of the lightning, and he was the ruler of thunder. Then if you see Shashanka, that is the moon god. Moon god is the ruler of the gravitational force, is the ruler of the mind. And when it comes to Vayu, is the god of the air. Whatever we see, the air and the prana or the energy, the vital force, he is the ruler of this vital force and the air. If he withdraws himself, then the whole air gets extinct, the atmosphere air, then everyone dies. Similarly, Agni, the fire god, whatever the burning power, the heat, the source of heat is from the Agni. So they were all different gods and they had specific functionalities. Fortunately or unfortunately, many times they had a quarrels among themselves. They envied themselves. They had a jealousy among themselves. So when we try to read and understand these mythological concepts of God at this present day, we think, what is this? These gods are very primitive in nature. How can this can be accepted? This can be believed. Now here, Swami Vivekananda makes again interesting remark. Look, today where I am, and from today where I am, from that point of view, I am trying to judge thousands of years before concept of God. That's what we are making a mistake. And that is the same thing with either the Egyptian mythology or the Hebrews or the Greeks or the Romans or any other old civilizations mythologies. We are trying to study and understand as it is, and we are thinking that they are primitive and they are not right, and we bring them down, which is not right. So probably that old concepts contextually and historically, keeping in the reference of the time, we should understand Swami Vivekananda says. And he also makes one more beautiful point. Whatever my understanding, okay, it is right or wrong, that is a different issue. But why should I decide based on my own understanding, or based on my understanding, why should I judge others' perceptions or other religions' perceptions? My God is the only true God, all other gods are not true. My religion is the only true religion, all other religions are not true. My scripture is the only true scripture, all other scriptures are not true. If you follow, you will go to eternal hell, which is not right. Swami Vivekananda marks at this idea. And the same thing, if you see in the Vedas itself, when you come to Aranyakas and Upanishads part, later part, they tell very clearly this whatever Indra, Varuna, Rudra, Shashanka, Marut, all these gods are demigods. They're nothing but officers. Like any one of us can become Indra, any one of us can become Vayu, any one of us become Agni. Whoever accumulates so much punya merits, good merits, we can become that officer. So they are the officers, they are not the real gods. But what we can see, the evolution of the concept of God from the Samhita portion of the Vedas to the Upanishadic portion of the Vedas. And it is not only in the Indian mythology or the Aryan mythology. The same thing we can see even in the different religions and different civilizations and different mythologies also. Say, for example, in the Egyptian mythology, there is a sun god, and there is a called, Aker, who is the god of the earth and horizon. And among them, there was a moon god also, and there was a grain. There was a god who was for harvesting. I think Nepar they call, who was the god for harvesting. If you worship him, then you will have a good harvesting. So these are all male gods. And Egyptian mythology, which is a rich mythology like Indian mythology, they also had lot of female gods also. And very interestingly, they had a one frog goddesses who was responsible for the childbirth in womanisms. And among them, there is a god of evil, which is Demon, who's called known as Demon and Apopis, and who is the god of goodness, horses and horses or horses, they say. And they had a constant fight among this god of good and god of evil. And same thing, if you come to Romans also, the same idea has been seen. So when you see this pantheism, so-called pantheistic gods, Vedantic, Vedas, in the Samhita portion, in this Egyptian mythologies, and in the Roman mythology, if you see, there is a one common factor in those days. So all these gods were symbolizing the nature forces. In those days, controlling the rain, controlling the thunder, controlling the air or the floods was the greatest challenge for the people in those days. So whatever the force was behind this rain or the lightning or the thunder or the whatever the natural happenings, so they considered that there is a god behind this. So all these gods were the controller of the natural forces. And slowly, if you see, again there is an evolution after these pantheistic gods. Then the kings started demanding or commanding that themselves they are gods. For an example, Indian mythology, if you see, Hiranyakashipu, who was the father of Prahalada, he started declaring that he is the God. He himself is God. Everyone should worship him. If you don't worship, then you will be slain, you will be killed. The same thing we can see in the Romans, you can see in the Greeks, you can see in the Egyptians, and you can see in the Mesopotamians and in the Mayan civilizations. All in these places, we can see at different points of time, kings started declaring that themselves as gods. And slowly, again, when there is a evolution of the concept, then ancestral worship came into existence. Our forefathers, they die, they stay in this particular world, they are with full of energy, and if we pray, and they will bless from the above worlds so that we can live happily. That's where today's Mahalaya Amavasya, Mahamalaya Amavasya. Today is the day in Indian mythology or Indian culture and civilization. They worship the ancestors on this particular day. So this ancestral worship came into existence. This you can see in Chinese civilization, in Japanese civilization, and in the Egyptian civilization, and in the Hebrews or in the Jews, even today, even in the Christians, and in Muslims, and in Buddhists also you can see this ancestor worship. So slowly from nature worship, people shifted to ancestor worship. Of course, nature worship was also intact, but ancestor worship took the primary role. Then slowly, once they evolved, they started worshipping the great people, like who is great, who is very valor, who can rule the world, who can kill thousands of people, such a great ones, because for his might he was worshipped. Or someone is very compassionate, who was very loving in nature, and who was very universal minded in nature, who has displayed some occult powers, so-called occult powers. Such type of specially manifested or specially powered people were worshipped in the human civilization. Then slowly, when this morality, ethics, all these things came into existence in society, and society's fabrics was crystallized, then they started worshipping the God as the creator, as the sustainer, and the dissolver, as the destroyer of the God, which is called Holy Trinity in the Indian philosophy, the Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. So God is here, omniscient, is all capable, is the creator, and is the maintainer, and is the destroyer. He is the ruler of the world, basically. So this is what the evolution we can see. So that means when man started perceiving himself as he is an intelligent man, from instinct level, he started thinking that he is an intelligent man. He started living at the level of thoughts, level of ideas. Then he started thinking that God is the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and is the creator God, is the sustainer God, is the God of dissolution or the destruction. Then this is called the dualistic concept of God, or the theistic, Vedantic theistic concepts of God. This is where it stops here. Even Semitic religions have stopped their concept of God here. Here, Advaita Vedanta did evolve some more little further, that God is not without any form, God is without any qualities, but he is with qualities, is with form, but is beyond that, because is the supreme self, Parabrahma, is Nirakara, he doesn't have any form, is Nirguna, is devoid of any qualities, he is inside the world and is beyond the world. This is the ultimate concept which we see in Advaita Vedanta has been one of the latest or the very forward concept of the God or the Supreme Self. Now, again, if you think why did it happen? Because the evolution of the concept of human being also has touched its pinnacle in the Advaita Vedanta. Now, people may accept or people may not accept. Now, the dualist or Dvaitin may come, the follower of Madhvacharya, he may come and argue with me. Oh, you are saying nonsense, it is not. And similarly, the people who believe in a qualified monoism, that is a Vishishtadvaita, they may come and argue with me, no doubt. But personally, I feel, I believe, and even Swami Vivekananda also has told very clearly regarding this, the Advaita is the most logical and which is nearest to the truth. So based on his utterances also, I am carefully making this comment that because the concept of the human being, the concept of self is highly evolved in Advaita, even his concept of God is also highly evolved, we can say. And for this, what is the cause if you think? Swami Vivekananda again gives a wonderful explanation. He brings progression and regression. These are the two which we all know that, but he brings that. What is this progression? Progression is the fact which is re, uh, revealing more actually, and regression is what fact is hiding more. The more and more you manifest, the more and more you become free, the more and more you evolve yourself, then there's a progression in human being, in the civilization, in the thinking, in the philosophy, in my understanding, in my perception. The more and more you hide, the more and more you become fanatic, the more and more you close yourself, then you will not be able to understand the truth. You will not be able to understand the reality. So he brings the beautiful idea of this progression and regression. And for this, the path or the way Swami Vivekananda tells is Pravritti Marga and the Nivritti Marga, which we see in the Upanishads or in the Advaita Vedanta. What is this Pravritti and Nivritti Marga? One whose mind and senses or intellect or his thoughts are going away towards the society, towards the world, externally, it is called pravrutti. And who wants to control his body, mind, senses, energy, and prana, and who wants to turn inwards, and who wants to see the truth himself or inside, that is what nivrutti he says that. So they here only really the religion started, the real spirituality started. All the great people, all the realized people, they controlled their body and mind. They regulated their thoughts, they regulated their ideas, they regulated their desires, and they went inside and they found out the truth. So all the saints and prophets we can see. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. Means religion means realization. And he uses one more word. It is do not, do not, do not. Means not this, not this, not this, or neti marga. Do not go outside, rather come inside and see the truth, what is inside. That is what the self. Now, if you see the whole concept of evolution, the human being started from the man as the instinct, at the level of instinct he started, and for him also God was quarreling among themselves with the human deficiencies. Then when he started thinking that he is the mind, his thought, and his intelligent, his intellect, and he started conceiving the God as the creator, sustainer, and the dissolver, not the destructor actually. Pralayakarta means the dissolver, not the destroyer. And when he started thinking, when he started understanding that he is the self, is the druk, never the drushya, is the subject, never the object, is the just pure awareness, pure conscious, he started experiencing, understanding that God is the Parabrahma, where he resides everywhere. He stays everywhere. There is no place where God doesn't exist. Now, for example, when he's thinking, when he's at the level of mind, at the level of thoughts and ideas, mostly the dualistic concept of God was there. God was living in the heaven, or God was living in that particular above world. He is ruler of the world. Staying there, he's ruling the world. So God has a particular abode. You can say Kailasa, or you can say Vaikuntha, or you can say heaven, or Golok, or whatever, whichever. So God is residing in particular abode. God is residing in a particular place. From there, he's controlling the whole world. He's controlling the whole universe. So again, God was restricted in one place. Of course, God is powerful. He can travel anywhere. He can come to any world, no doubt. But there was one place. There was one place to sit, reside, and to sleep and all. But when it comes to Advaita Vedantic concept, non-dualistic concept of God, God pervades everywhere. There is no place God doesn't exist. Why? Because when I say that I am the self and I am the just pure awareness, bare awareness, existence, consciousness, and bliss absolute, the same corollary or the same thing we can see in the evolution of the concept of God also. They started thinking that God is the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and not only that, he is ever existent. The same idea we can see in the Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasya midam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tektena bunjita mahabhuta kasya svitanam. Means there is no place where there is no God. That's why cover everything with the divinity. Cover everything with the God, Isha. Cover everything with the God means what? Cover everything with divinity. Cover everything with divinity means what? There everywhere, in every place, in every person, in every object, there is divine alone. There is consciousness alone. The same thing we can see in the life of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna. When Sri Ramakrishna was explaining that look, everything is Brahman alone, Brahman and Brahman alone exist. And to make his what idea clear, he started explaining that like the cart on which I'm sitting, and the jug, and the kettle, and the people who are here, everyone is Brahman, everyone is consciousness. This young Naren came out, and with one of his friend Hazra, he started making a fun of it. Look, what Sri Ramakrishna is telling. He's okay, he's good man, he's a pious man, he's a spiritually advanced person maybe, but sometimes I think he lost his balance of his mind. Why? Because he's saying that even the cart is sitting on the cart where he is sitting, and the kettle and the jug, everything can be Brahman, it seems. How it can be? It is utterly nonsense. It cannot be. Then Hazra also joins his arguments, and his words both were making a fun of it, and they were laughing. Sri Ramakrishna comes and he touches Naren. And Naren, because Sri Ramakrishna's, because of his divine touch or spiritual power, Naren's lost his consciousness. And Naren's literally starts experiencing that the whole world is with full of consciousness. Now, just before that touch, he was able to see the wall clearly. The Sri Ramakrishna's room's wall, he was able to see very clearly, just like as we see. But after that, Sri Ramakrishna's touch, divine touch, the wall was also getting merged in something. Every object, every person, and everything was merging in something, and the consciousness alone he was able to perceive. And not only that, after some time, when he was traveling back, and when he was going back to his house, when he saw the same earlier trees, earlier iron railings, it was just it was appearing as a thin shade for him. So he used to go and used to hold the railings and used to hit his head against it, and used to see and test whether they are really existing or not. And he goes back to house, and mother calls him for lunch or supper. Then mother serves the food, and he takes one or two morsel and is unable to eat. Why? Because the plate and the rice and the person who is eating, the person who is serving, utensils, everything is appearing as a Brahman. Everything is appearing as a mirage. Everything is appearing as some just very vague reflections. That means when we hear these Advaitic truths or Advaitic concept, we think that this may not be true. This may be just hypothetical arguments, or it is just mere thinking. But it is not so. It can be experienced even today. For example, logical positivists in the Western philosophy, they say, oh, this metaphysics and not only non-dualism, especially metaphysics is meaningless, they say. Why metaphysics is meaningless? Because it cannot be tested, it cannot be verified. That's why it is metaphysics is meaningless. In the 17th or 18th century, in the West, there were a good number of people who advocated this logical positivism theory. It is a school of philosophy, of course, because the metaphysics cannot be verified, cannot be experimented, so we consider it as a meaningless or nonsensical. But if you see in the life of Swami Vivekananda, if you see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, or if you see in the life of saints, they have verified the old truth. Then after this, Swami Vivekananda again, he brings back the Maya concept. And he says, now after explaining, after discussing, or after understanding the concept of God, or the evolution of the concept of God, but our real problem doesn't cease to exist. In very a sort of philosophical joke, he takes this stand. He says that look, God is whether is a moral agent, whether God is ethical or unethical, whether God is omniscient, omnipresent, or omnipotent. But I am living in this world, which is with full of dualities, which is with full of problems, full of challenges. It is with good and evil, right and wrong, happiness and unhappiness, so on and so forth. So this problem is not solved for me. Then he says, Vedantins say that it is an illusion. Maya, it is because of Maya, it is only illusion. Swami Vivekananda says it may be illusion, but it is not the right definition of the Maya. Maya means it is not the illusion, rather, Maya means it is a statement of facts. Whatever it exists, it is just it has been told, but we are not able to understand as it is clearly. And he gives a beautiful example. And he gives beautiful analysis of his own statement. Maya means it is a statement of fact. It is not just illusion. Illusion is not right translation or the definition of the Maya. He says, he gives an example. Now, just my mind started imagining that someone is calling me. Then I started thinking that someone is calling me, someone is calling me, someone is calling me. And probably in the so-called, in the waking state also, I may be thinking that someone is calling me and I am trying to respond. But in reality, there is no one calling, but it was only mere imagination. This is what happens typically in the dream. So even the so-called, based on Mandukya Karika, Swami Vivekananda is saying, or Mandukya Upanishad, the so-called waking state is also a long dream or it is a big dream. And just like in the dream, you had that notion that someone is calling and you went and you saw there was no one and it was a mirage you felt. And so-called the waking state is also big mirage. Why don't you think or why can't you think? And it may be so also, isn't it? And he gives a benefit of doubt. And he raises one important, beautiful question that whatever we think, it is all because of the brain. Whatever we think, it is all because of this mind. Now, what is the guarantee that there is a mind? It may be imagination. It may be mere wild imagination, isn't it? He raises as a benefit of doubt, and afterwards he says, I mean, the implied thing or corollary of this Swamiji's statement is the whole world or the whole knowledge is possible for us from these five sense organs of knowledge and as well as the mind, which is called sixth sense organ. The whole knowledge of the world knowledge, whatever we are getting, everything has been, we are getting by these five sense organs of knowledge and with the sixth, one more sense organ, which is called mind. It is very true. It is very right, no doubt. But it is also very true is that because we are understanding the world and getting the knowledge, getting the information is also quite equally limited. Again, it is very wonderful, interesting point. I don't know how many of you will be able to understand. The whole knowledge, either secular knowledge or spiritual knowledge, or any inventions or any discoveries or whatever it may be, the knowledge of an object, knowledge of the idea, all these things we are getting from the five sense organs of knowledge and the one more called mind or brain. That is true. But because of this, then our understanding or our thinking, our knowing, our perception is also structured and is also limited. That's what Swami Vivekananda meant actually here. But we take it for granted, and based on these fundamental assumptions, we keep on arguing, we keep on debating, we keep on discussing. And he says, even the freedom and the bondage, both are in the realm of Maya, both are. It is just debatable, that's all. Because the bondage is in the Maya, the freedom is also in the Maya. Because Ajativada is told by in Mandukya Upanishad. If when I am not born actually, then where is the question of death? When I am not bound at all, then where is the question of getting freedom at all? Of course, it is the highest philosophy. It is not that easy for every one of us to understand. But Swami is telling that the bondage and the freedom both are in the realm of Maya. So a very interesting point is this, that the whatever the science is telling that, okay, whatever you say, it should be demonstrated, it should be verified, it should be examined. That the fundamental axioms of the so-called science axioms is been questioned, is been shaken by the spiritual science actually, or by the Vedanta. Why? Whatever you understand from the six sense organs, five sense organs of knowledge and the mind, what is the guarantee that it is giving the right knowledge? And if, for an argument's sake, For discussion's sake, if the God gives me the seventh organ, one more organ tomorrow, my understanding, my perception about the world, and my perception about the God, and my perception about the myself changes, can change, will change also. Just for an example, electromagnetic spectrum. We know X-rays, we know alpha rays, we know gamma rays, we know beta rays, all these things based on the different wavelength and frequencies. Before their inventions, were they not there? Were they? They were there. But only we were not aware of it. The moment when we heard, when we came to know, then our understanding became better. So just similarly, if there is any natural disaster, for an example, there is a tsunami. Human being understanding the tsunami is just a mere few minutes or few seconds before. But generally, the birds and the animals, they understand few hours or at least 1 or 2 days before itself, they can understand. Even any greatest natural disasters, when it has happened, if you see, observe closely, the birds will making a lot of sounds and the animals also making, they will start making unusual sounds. Why? Because they will be able to understand, they will be able to conceive that there's a natural disaster which is going to happen. Now, animals are able to conceive, the human being, which is so-called more advanced person, but he's not able to understand why. Because a particular, in that particular way or in that particular level, my sense organ has been developed. That's why I'm not able to understand. So this is what Swami Vivekananda is saying. My understanding, we are all based on our assumptions, we are all based on our understandings, but again, it is all Maya. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying. Maya means it is the statement of fact. Just like one more example, probably I would like to give. When we were children, I mean, I have given this example quite a number of times. We used to play with the toys, and the toys were real for all of us. For the toys, we would have fight. I mean, the like brother and sister would have fought for the same toy. But the same brother and sister, when they have grown, even the toy is lying on the sofa, then the same brother and sister, they would not have bothered. They don't bother for the toy because they don't give any value, or the value has been changed and they know the worth of the toy just €1 or €2. But few years before, the same guys, they quarrel for the toy, and toy had become the alpha and omega of their life, but now they don't give. There is no change, external change in the toy, but my perception, my understanding, my valuing the toy has been changed. This is what Swami Vivekananda is saying. This is what Maya is. So today, whatever you are saying, that is real, that is real. This is the only real which you are saying. It may not be, because the moment you evolve, the moment you evolve, your understanding of reality, your concept of reality changes. So similarly, the concept of God and the concept of reality, it is constantly evolving. So this we should understand, and we should not be fanatic. We should be open-minded. You should be universal-minded, and we have to do the progression. And he makes a wonderful. He brings the next, of course. Next week I'll be taking the problem of evil. He makes a interesting comment. When the civilization grew, there was a sort of arithmetic progression. But the problem of evil, and there are so many philosophical problems, also evolved in the geometric progression. The thinking, the evolution of the thought, the evolution of the ideas has been progressed in the civilization as in the like arithmetic progression. But because of that, the problem of evil and the so-called philosophical subtleties, philosophical problems also grew with the like geometric progression. And he brings and he discusses the problem of evil. Very, very much interesting. Now, if I take, it will not be enough time. So next week I'll be taking the problem of evil as discussed by Swami Vivekananda, and how Advaita Vedanta is one of the best way where it can solve the problem of evil. And he also shows how the Semitic religions and the dualistic schools of Vedanta, they are unable to solve the problem of evil, whereas the non-dualistic school of Vedanta, which is Advaita Vedanta, is capable of the solving the problem of evil, which has been discussed highly either in Indian philosophy and the Western philosophy, so much so that even today many of the Western philosophers couldn't come to conclusion, whereas Advaita Vedanta has come to conclusion. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishnarpanamastu.